When my son was young, his first video game was called Resident Evil. And if you know this title, this was the first, okay, the original Resident Evil. And it was on the original PlayStation. So they didn't even call it the PlayStation 1 or the Resident Evil 1, even though like many years later, there was like a whole series, a franchise, some movies, right? Resident Evil. My son Gabe, he would sit in my lap and he would put his little hands on the controller and I would put my big man hands around his tiny little kid hands. And Gabe's his only ability was to push the single button that made the gun shoot. So I would move the move stick, the wiggle stick, I would control the character, aim at the zombie, and then my son would click the gun. Bam! And people would say to me, like, wow, Bishop, this game is pretty violent, huh? Like, you let your young son, isn't this game rated R or like the M? Well, yeah, I guess it is. But, you know, my son, he knows it's just pretend, you know? It's just a video game, right? Yes, but like, how does he know? Or how do you know that he knows that it's pretend, right? Yeah, you know, he just knows because he's smart. Welcome to my world. Are you ready? Come with me on a journey through time, some places, some love, comedy, tragedy, death, therapy. You know, all of the good things that make up a Bishop tale. Don't be scared. It's just me out here meeting the internet in person. I remember just putting some real emphasis on belief. So I taught my sons, look, you know, the things that we believe in, they're important. I guess this all came from the boys. Their real dad would take them to church sometimes. And church would teach them all about judgment, consequences, bad decisions, you know, and it was imprinted upon my sons, my stepsons, okay? And they would come to me and they would say, hey, Bishop, what do you believe? Do you believe in a heaven? Do you believe in a God? And I would say, yeah, of course, but it's a little more complicated. So to explain this to a mind of a child, I said, look, no one can control your beliefs, okay? Your beliefs are your own, and you can choose to believe in whatever you want, or you can choose to not believe, right? That's how it works. And the amount of belief is important. If I want to believe in something a whole bunch, down to my core, right? Like, or I can believe in it in just a little bit, and it doesn't bother me if something goes against my beliefs, okay? So in this world, you'll find a bunch of people who believe a certain thing. It doesn't mean you have to believe. It doesn't mean that their beliefs have control over you. I tried to give my sons this real good foundation. So one of the things that I felt compelled to teach them was that images and things on the TV, they weren't real, okay? So, I don't know, we would be watching something that would scare them. They would have nightmares, and I would come along and I would say, look, this stuff is not real, okay? And to try to convey that belief, I took it a step further. So, okay, guys, here's some violence on a particular TV show. Look, this guy, he shot a gun, and this other guy, he had blood explode from his chest, and he fell down, and he was dead, right? It looks pretty real, huh? And guys, I think even as adults, our world can be pretty scary. Like, there's some pretty scary stuff out there. So to be able to tell a child that what they're seeing is not real, that their fear is not real, oh my gosh, so very powerful. So I think it was one Halloween, Jackal, he decided he was going to be a vampire, so he bought some fake blood. And I saw this as an opportunity. So I went and got the jug of fake blood, And I said, brothers, come along, come here, we're gonna do this thing. So I took a little Ziploc bag and I dumped the jug of blood into the Ziploc bag. I sort of rolled it over and then I taped it so that, you know, it wouldn't spill. Spilling was a no-no, and you got a spanking for spilling. So I went down the basement and I found a piece of styrofoam because the boys were always getting presents. These presents always contained styrofoam. There was the remote control car or the Nerf gun or the, you know, science experiment. So I took this piece of styrofoam and I took the little package of blood from my Ziploc baggie full of blood and I put it into the styrofoam and I put some more tape around it. Not a whole lot of heavy tape, just enough to hold it in place, you know? And then I went and found some old t-shirts and I took this styrofoam with the blood inside of it and I taped it around one of our kids, the volunteer, right? Which was always Jaguar. He was the volunteer. Jackal held the camera and I let my son Gabe hold a knife. We're talking big, sharp, ugly looking blade. And he poked it into the stomach where this blood pack was located. And of course the blood comes out and it kind of, for all purposes, looks real, right? There was one t-shirt behind and one t-shirt above or in front. So the kids thought this was amazing. They were like, oh my gosh, you know, it's right. It looks real. And I said, yes. So these people, they have jobs where they make this thing look so real. They spend so much time making a thing look real, but it's not real. It's totally fake. It's totally pretend. And people ask me if I really did this, you know, did you really do that, Bishop? Oh my gosh. Yeah, we did that. So imagine for a second, okay? You are a kid and your hero, right? The person that you grew up with, the person that taught you everything, taught you how to talk, held you up to the mirror, answered your every question. They said, hey, you don't have to be afraid. It's not real. I think this was so powerful, you guys, because imagine for a moment in your childhood, if your hero, well, let's say you were sitting on the couch watching TV together and all of a sudden something scary happened. If your hero yet let out a yelp, ah, and a scream and a wail, and they ran away and they were crying and they're in the backyard and you look back at the TV, what does that do to us? You know, does that teach us how to be afraid? Like, do we have lives filled with fear? And where does that come from? Did we learn that? I feel like we did. So my job as a parent was to teach my kids that certain things just weren't real. You didn't have to believe in them, you know? And wow, no video games, no Goosebumps TV show, no scary movies. My kids knew how to do it because I showed them. I really liked the old style before the CGI. Some of my favorite movies were like Labyrinth, The Dark Crystal, The Never-Ending Story, you know, the classics. And with our ability to look at YouTube and see behind the scenes of how they made these movies, these puppets, Jim Henson, you know, I found clips where 5 or 6 people were operating Jabba the Hutt. And, you know, Olga from The Dark Crystal. Here's how they stood below the floor. Here's how they worked her arms, her eyes, her mouth, everything. And my sons absorbed all this. They took it in and they said, wow, Bishop's right. We don't have to be afraid. Yep. You don't have to be afraid. It's something that we were taught how to do. Just like everything else, huh? I think for most of my life, I had my parents' voice, you know, that or my grandma's, like right up in here all the time. And for some reason, I picked the most negative, you know, the critical, the frustrated, depressed, sad. These voices, they would haunt me, you know. I didn't know what to do with them. So when my son started to speak, it was his voice that I longed to hear. I just latched onto that thing so tight, you know, like the mind of a child, right? The wonder and the amazement and the joy and the simplicity of it all. And I just thought, that's the way I want to be, you know? I don't want to hear these negative, nasty, awful voices in my head anymore. I don't want to be a critical person. I don't want to be stuck. I don't want to not communicate. I want to be able to ask questions, you know? This is what we're supposed to do. So yeah, my son changed my life just by giving me an example of like what life could be, you know? It doesn't have to be bad. I really miss that, you know? That being close to a child, that constant, that immersion. And every day, you know, it was always a new question. Every day was a new experience. Yeah. I remember being super protective of my computer downstairs because like I've got all these pictures, videos, you know, writings, journals. So when the boys would sneak down there, they'd be playing hide and seek or something. They weren't allowed in the basement. They weren't supposed to go in the basement, but you know, things happened. I would have this big old freak out and I would be like, Raven, we can't let them down there. We can't get them. I want, you know, protect the computer. And one day Raven stood there with all of her bluntness and she said, Bishop, maybe you need to choose. Do you want to have your computer or do you want to have these boys? You can't have both. And that's just the matter-of-fact way that Raven did it, right? Like, her earth would always seem to smother my fire. Sometimes I guess that was a good thing because she was right. Like, if I was going to involve these boys in my life, if I was going to live with any others, roommates, kids, partners, spouses, whatever, I was going to have to accept that things were going to happen, you know, accidents were going to happen, things were going to get broken. So I thought about it for a bit and I went downstairs in the basement and I started looking through all my parts and pieces and all my old computers that I had salvaged, you know, and I pulled a little bit here, pulled a little bit there, worked some magic, and boom, I made the boys their own computer. It sat right in the living room. It was on a little table with little chairs. And I showed them how to use it. And guys, the games that they would play, you know, the Bookworm and the Peggle and Insane Aquarium, Plants vs. Zombies, they loved that one. There were so many like educational games. So to be able to use a computer at an early age, to be able to learn how to type, you know, and guys, this was back in the zeros. Like, I don't know, what are we calling this? Like the 2007s, 08s. I've been calling them the zeros because I'm cool like that. This was before, you know, the smartphones. This was like the internet was just getting started. And my sons knew how to type and they knew how to use a browser. And after a bit, they even learned how to pirate because that's where all the best games were, you know. I feel like Raven would push me in a direction that I was hesitant to go, and then I would see that direction because I was forced to go there. And then I would look back and I would be like, babe, I love you. How did you do that? I try to do that. I try to get myself to go in a certain direction and I can't do it, but you, with just that little confrontation, she'd look right at me and she'd be like, Bishop, okay. When Gabe was old enough to speak, you know, we went and found him a daycare center because like it was time, right? He was old enough. I found myself comfortable enough to go try to find a job, but a lot like my bouncing 20s, I guess I was bouncing through my 30s now. Let's see, we'll do some list form. Here's like swimming pool warehouse. I did a fire extinguisher checker kind of guy, more auto parts delivery, some art supplies delivery. I did a screen print shop for a while there. I even did like an HVAC warehouse. I don't know, guys. I found myself just not feeling the priority because to me, You know, keeping my family safe and protected and educated. Like, that was the number one, was you got to teach these kids, and keeping Raven happy, because a lot of times there was always this friction, you know, and I don't know, we always seemed to argue about money, mostly because Raven felt like I didn't make enough. And you know, when I did have money, I would spend it on crap. I would spend it on the green, or the alcohol, or video games, or board games, or entertainment, really, you know? So there always seemed to be an argument. I don't know. It was tough. I did my best because I didn't want to go back to that time in jail, and that time where I had nobody, no family. So in order to hold my family together, I sort of just accepted that, you know, we might have an argument sometimes, and that was okay. Because we always seemed to fix it afterwards. The makeup bangs, those are pretty good. We stayed home a lot. I don't know, we did like all the dishes, constant laundry. There was like a mountain of toys to pick up. Like, you guys, you don't realize how much you accumulate, you know, being just one person. But you try to have 5 people in the same spot. So, I don't know, Jackal, he always wanted like Legos. Jaguar, he was into like music and books and science experiments and weird stuff. And then of course Gabe was just his own monster, his own entity, where he wanted all the things that weren't like his brothers, which made sense, you know. So it sort of fell upon me to constantly find another box or another bin or a tote or something to put old toys in, because like, I wasn't just going to throw them away, you know. Maybe someday they'd want these toys. Like, I was a collector when I was a kid, my G.I. Joes, my He-Mans, my Thundercats. So it was kind of weird. Raven was really big into birthday parties, and she would make these crazy cakes, and whatever kid wanted this cake, sometimes 2 cakes if it were the twins. And we also got really cool with these piñatas. So we would have a birthday party and we would do this piñata thing, and all the neighborhood kids, all the cousins, the families, they wanted to smash the piñata with us because it had become just this cool ritual, you know? So one birthday party, I got a little creative. I went down the basement and I pulled out all kinds of old toys, old Nerf guns, action figures, cars, trains, you name it. Like, just everything, you guys, just all these toys. And at the birthday party, I made like a spinning wheel, almost like a Wheel of Fortune, but, you know, smaller. So the kids would line up and they would spin this wheel. And if they got a simple little hourglass symbol, I would give them a piece of candy, tell them to go to the end of the line, try again. Every once in a while, somebody would land on a Count Chocula symbol or something cool, and I would reach under the table, pull out an old Nerf gun, hand it to them, an old lightsaber, an old anything. And oh my gosh, these kids would be ecstatic, right? Like, they came to somebody else's birthday party because it was that kid's birthday, right? One of my stepsons or one of my sons, and they left with a birthday present of their own. It was pretty cool. And of course, all the kids, all the parents, you know, they knew that if you went to Bishop, guys, in the situation that we were in, having all these neighbors had kids. Anytime we were in the backyard doing anything at all, these kids would come out and want to play with us because we had the sandbox and we had the swimming pool and we had the Nerf guns and we had football and we had just a group of neighborhood kids. And sometimes these kids were nice and good, and other times they were so struggling for attention. They didn't have fathers at home. Their mothers didn't pay attention to them. Maybe they were an only child. And when we would go inside to eat dinner or do homework or something, these kids would stand in our backyard looking through our back slider door like, are they coming out yet? Can you guys come out? Come on. Okay, we'll wait. We'll just be waiting right here. And these kids would wait forever. It was so crazy. But that one day when we put the Heroscape out in the backyard, everybody came. So my sons were pretty popular. I guess we were just the popular family. I don't know. It's weird, you guys. It's just plain weird. Raven and I, we just tried to do our best for our sons, you know. We tried to do everything we could. We were always there if they needed something, if they had a question to ask, if they needed attention, you know, like we were both, I think we were both really great parents because we honestly loved our kids, you know. We wanted them to be the best that they could be, and we wanted them to be happy, and we showed them that every day. So yeah, we worked hard, and at night we played hard. There was almost always green, lots of bang bangs. We had, you know, our time. It was like adult time. We would watch a movie together, play a game, you know, the new HeroScape. That was fun for a while. Both Raven and I were pretty competitive. I don't know. I think looking back, we did pretty good, you know. I think that's the best thing you can do as a parent is just do your best, you know, every day, give as much as you can, sacrifice. Yeah. You guys, there is a new TV show. This video is not sponsored. None of my videos are sponsored. This TV show, remember the show called Cops, where you would follow along for a half hour in a cop vehicle and, you know, watch as they arrest people? You know, people do fun stuff. So this show is called All Access, Grand Rapids Police Department. It takes place in my hometown. And here I was thinking that I was going to have to put Grand Rapids on the map, but somebody else beat me to it. So guys, I highly recommend this. Check this thing out, All Access. And it is gritty, it is real, and it's right in my backyard, so it hits pretty close to home, if you know what I mean. Again, not sponsored. Yeah, but I can tell you, it has made me look at things a little differently, you know, made me look at my life a little different, maybe. I don't know.
The Silver Cap! Silver Cap!
In the fall of 2008, my son started his first day of kindergarten, and it was quite an experience. So Gabe had been around school his whole life, you know. We were picking up his brothers. It was always a thing. But now it was his turn, and his daycare experiment was sort of brief. I don't know. It was a little bit problematic. Gabe was just a very fierce independent, strong-willed. I could probably go on there. The list is pretty good. So anyway, that morning, the first day of school, they make all these kids line up outside. You got to wait, you know, and you stand in this line, and every kindergartner had his parent, sometimes two parents. Our child, both Raven and I, wanted to be present. You know, this was a big moment. So there was a lot of pressure, and I think Gabe could feel that, you know. So we're all standing there, and the clock is ticking, and nothing makes you more nervous, more anxious than the countdown. Here it comes, right? So I look up and down this line. I see a whole bunch of nervous kid faces, a whole bunch of nervous parent faces. And I step out of the line for a minute, and I grab Gabe by the hand, and he's always ready to follow Daddy. So I walk forward. I don't know, I skipped 3 or 4 parents that had daughters, and I found the next son. Kind of a little chunky kid. He was kind of brown-skinned. And I looked his mom in the eye as I approached. And I could see the same thing that I was thinking and feeling in her reflection. So I knelt down, and I looked at this little brown boy, and I said, "Hey, this kid, his name is Gabe. What's your name?" And of course, his mom says, "His name is David." And I was like, "Oh, hi, David. This is Gabe." And his mom says, "No, not David. It's David." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Sorry, David." "Gabe, David." "No, you're not saying it right. It's Navid." And I was like, "Okay. Wherever you go, Gabe goes. And wherever Gabe goes, you go. Okay? You guys are going to be friends. I want you to stand right there. Mama and I are gonna go, we're gonna go take a walk. And Gabe looked at his new friend, and then he looked at his mommy and his daddy who were walking away, and he just, he was made to follow instructions. So this new kid, all of a sudden he smiled, you know, and Gabe looked at him and he kind of smiled too. And then the doors opened and all these kids went inside. Almost all of them were crying. All their parents were crying, except for Gabe and his new friend, who I later learned his name is Naveed. He is from a place called Bangladesh. So they have some really cool names over there. I think it's with an N, N-A-V-I-D, Naveed. I don't know. Gabe and Naveed quickly became best friends, and on the ride home, Raven was like, "You shouldn't have cut in line like that." And I was like, okay, yeah, you're right, Rave. I shouldn't have cut in line. I shouldn't have shown my son how to cut in line. But you know what? He didn't cry. He didn't grab onto your thigh. So many things could have gone a different way there. But that's how my relationship with Raven was. It was very confrontational. I think it was about a month or two into my son Gabe's first year of kindergarten when we were contacted by his teacher. And I sort of suspected I knew what was going on. Raven got a little nervous, so we went to school and we met with his teacher, who was a really cool lady. She had actually been Mr. Jaguar's teacher a handful of years ago. So we knew her a little bit. We sat there with her and the principal, and Gabe's teacher says, Bishop, first of all, Gabe's not in any trouble. He didn't do anything wrong. We just brought you in here today because I want to tell you that it is in my belief that Gabe be advanced. He is not, he's not kindergarten material. And I kind of said, oh, like, okay. Go ahead, elaborate, explain more, please. Bishop, he knows all of his letters, you know. When I'm trying to teach the rest of the class how to recognize letter M, your son can spell words with letter M, like he'll throw out 10 of them, and he'll just, like, no big deal. Oh, well, that's kind of cool, right? Yeah. Mr. Bishop, your son already knows all of his numbers, you know? Yeah, I know, I get that. I taught him how to read, and it was like HeroScape that taught him his numbers. Guys, the HeroScape game, each little figure, it comes with a card that has statistics. And this is how much your figure can move, how far he can shoot, how hard he attacks, his defense, all that good stuff, right? So when Gabe wanted to play HeroScape, I said, no, I don't feel like, no, that's not good. I don't want Gabe to have made friends and socialize, and now we take him out of that environment. You know, that just doesn't seem fair to me. I want him to be with his best friend, right? Naveed, how is he doing? Is Gabe acting up? Oh, no, not at all. Is Gabe disturbing other kids? Is he causing problems? No, in fact, like, he helps the other kids. I can put a kid who is struggling next to Gabe, and Gabe will help him out just for fun. I've never seen anything like it. I don't know. Well, okay, so math, reading, probably some science. He knows all that, but the things that he doesn't know is how to have social skills, you know, how to talk to strange kids, how to talk to girls, boys, everything. I want him to stay in kindergarten, and I will correct every error if he makes one. Okay, you contact me and you tell me if he's making a mistake, if he's doing something bad, okay? And I will talk to him, we'll fix it, but I'm gonna leave him in kindergarten. On the way home, Raven says, do you think that was the right call? Always second guessing, always. She was another very critical voice in my mind, but I knew where she got her critical voice from. It was from her mother, so. The following year, it was just more of the same, different teacher, still very appreciative of all of my kids' teachers. You know, that is not an easy job to do. So I went and I sat across from them, and this new lady, she says the same thing. She says, "Sir, there is just nothing that I can teach your child. Like, he's in first grade and he's reading at a fifth grade level." And I was like, okay, yeah, that sounds good. No, you don't understand, sir. When I asked the class, like, who would like to read this page, a couple of kids will raise their hands. Gabe will not. Okay. About 75% of my class will turn and point at Gabe. They want him to read. Yeah, okay, that sounds good too. Like, okay. Mr. Bishop, when Gabe reads, he does wonky, willy, silly voices for all the dialogue. And he makes it match. It's beautiful. I've never seen anything like it. Well, yeah, that's something we started doing. Both his mother and I were doing that at a pretty early age. You know, what was the book about the giant? And whenever the giant would talk, we would go like this. And whenever the little boy would talk, it was the little boy's voice. So it's only natural that Gabe started doing that, you know. I understand. Mr. Bishop, I gotta recommend, you know, and I said, no, this argument is fun and all, but I am adamant, okay? He's gonna go to school, he's gonna have the same peers, he's gonna have the same friends, he's gonna trace the hand, make the Thanksgiving turkey, he's gonna do the Valentine's thing, all of this, okay? I'm not gonna advance him. He's fine the way he is. And I think they tried one more year, maybe when my son was in second grade, but I just wasn't having it, you know? You're not skipping him. You're not gonna make him special, okay? My kid, he might be special, but we're not gonna pretend and treat him special. He's gonna be treated like everybody else. My son, he never had any homework. As soon as the teacher would put a piece of paper in front of him, Gabe would pull out his pencil, he would scribble for a couple minutes, he'd put all the answers in the right spots, and he would give him that piece of paper right back. And the teacher would be like, Gabe, you didn't show your work. And he was like, what are you talking about, show my work? It's 8 plus 5. There's no work here. I tried really hard not to let him get a big fat head or think he was special, but I don't know, he was a smart kid, right? I don't think he had to study for any test, you know, he just knew it. He just knew what, the only time, like sometimes he would have a special project and he would come home and he would say, Daddy, look at this, or Mama. So these, model homes of like a primitive settlement back in the 1800s Wild West, you know, a lot of kids would do popsicle sticks or toothpicks, you know, something that was readily available, some clay, Play-Doh. My son, I guess like when his brothers would go to the real dads, Raven and I would take a quick smoke break, and then the rest of our time, the rest of our attention was paid to our one kid. He was our focus. He was our attention. So when we weren't playing video games, we would walk around and, you know, say hello to the world. And yeah, that's good. In my part of the world, we'd have these walnuts. Do you guys know what a walnut is? It's like a big round seed from a tree. But these were special walnuts because they had spikes all over them. They were really like just a spike ball. But they were everywhere, so Gabe decided he was going to start picking them up and putting them in his pocket. Or, you know, carrying them with his shirt, right? Yeah, I'm trying to talk here, people. Crikey. I got like a crow right above me, or it's a hawk or something. Anyway, my kid was the only kid at school who would bring his primitive home made out of spiky balls. And the other kids went just ballistic. It was the best thing ever, you know? And oh, how Raven loved to participate. She would do all the school activities, the snack day, the festivals. She would, you know, she was right in her element. And I saw very up close the way that Raven loved her kids, and I couldn't have asked for a better mother. She was so loving. That's the only word I can use. It's just plain loving, you know. I think she was the best mother that I've ever seen, and I only hoped that I was the best father, you know. We were both just very involved parents. I tried to turn down my protective helicopter thing. You know, he got smarter, he got bigger. I did the big box thing for Christmas for my sons, much like my father had done. I wanted, you know, as much as I was like pushing down on all the negative beliefs, I think I was really lifting up the positives. And I would look for places where beliefs could be used for a good thing, you know? So when it came to Santa Claus, to me, this was a great opportunity to, you know, exert a little bit more control, because if Bishop was watching all the time, which I tried to be, I don't know, there were times when I couldn't see everything, but Santa Claus, he saw everything. And I would tell my sons, you know, if you believe and you are a good person, and, you know, like, Santa Claus will reward you, you know? He sees all your good actions and he sees your bad actions. So if you're doing something bad, guess what's gonna happen? You know, your brothers are gonna get toys and awesome stuff, and you are not. So if you do something good, something bad, I don't know, it sort of helped with, like I said, the control. And oh my gosh, you guys, this big box, stuff it full of newspapers, do a little scavenger hunt, and make the boys go all over, upstairs, under their beds. How did Santa do that, right? Like, I sort of gave them the magic, you know, the magic of Christmas, the magic of Santa Claus. So they would wake up so excited, and they would wait all year long. And anytime I mentioned Santa's watching, yep, that got a response. Because one time I told them that if they were really bad, Santa would not only not bring them toys, but he would bring them girl toys. So go ahead and take that. You know, you get all excited, you open it up, and it's a Barbie, or it's a little purse. Was I cruel? I don't know, maybe. Yeah, this big box, I pulled some stuff. So I told the kids that I believed in Santa Claus too. So one year I was gonna try to catch them in the act. So I set up our camera, pointed at the Christmas tree, and I let it run. You know, I just let it record. And I showed the boys this the following day or the next day or whenever, after the excitement had all gone. I said, you know what? I think I caught Santa. So we took my old camcorder, plugged it into the VCR so that we could pump the image onto the TV. And here's what they saw. So a whole lot of recorded nothing, just the living room, Christmas tree, and then all of a sudden, poof, there it was. There was the big box, and you couldn't even see Santa because it was such a blur. So really what I had done is I had recorded for a half hour or so of nothing while Raven and I went downstairs and did our smoking thing. And then I stopped the camera and then set everything up, put the big box up, filled it full of stuff, did everything. And then I hit the record button on the camera again so that it looked like, this was back in the day before editing, guys. I don't know, I was creative like that. But yeah, I would lead them on this scavenger hunt that would take them upstairs under their beds where Santa had smuggled toys, or downstairs in the basement in the dryer, or, you know, just move them around, get them excited to do stuff. And while they were outside checking in the minivan for their presents, which were way in the back and sort of, you know, hidden, I would go and do something else that was super cool. So one time, Santa Claus brought us some guinea pigs, 3 of them. I was kind of against more pets, but you know, why not, right? So Santa actually had 3 guinea pigs in a box wrapped in the basement And the kids were like, oh my gosh, how is that possible? How did Santa do that? You know, it's magic, right? So of course, with me being able to build things, I built this huge skyscraper type thing right in the living room. And you know, you can't see it real well here, but there are little ramps so that the guineas can go up or down. It was multi-level. I don't know, the cats really loved it. The boys really loved it. I don't know, Raven and I, it was not so much fun to pick up all the loose bedding, but you know, for kids, you do what you gotta do, right? Raven and I never seem to have enough money. That's probably normal, right? If you're a parent with 3 boys. I don't know, we did the best that we could. We went camping a lot, you know, cheap activities, right? Fishing, canoe. Our sons had 3 sets of grandparents. So my parents, Raven's parents, and Raven's first husband's parents. So 3 grandparents means all the toys all the time. And of course, with my guidance, I could be like, hey, this is a really cool gift. So I remember one year, we were gifted something called Rock Band. Are you guys familiar with Rock Band or like Guitar Hero? So basically, these are like plastic guitars that replicate real instruments. There was a plastic drum set, there was a microphone. So our family would get together at night and do Rock Band, and we would play all this music, you know, old stuff that Raven really liked, Aerosmith, Chili Peppers, you know, like just a variety pack of music. And our sons learned coordination because playing the guitar, beating on the drums, and singing, like we were the complete package. I think the following year, we managed to find like the laser light show and the fog machine. So we had the entire setup. It was one of our favorites, you know, just little things that, you know, the time you spend. And I think I was happy, you guys, you know, or as happy as a broken kid from Michigan could be, right? Like we had all the things. Our house could have been better, you know, bigger. We didn't have a garage. We didn't have our own fenced-in backyard. It was...
Oh my goodness.
We did pretty good with what we had. There was like the model rockets and pumpkin carving. And of course, after pumpkin carving, there would be pumpkin smashing day, which the boys just, you know, everybody loves taking a baseball bat to a pumpkin. How can you not love that? I don't know. Happy. Raven sort of became my best friend, you know, and my son was definitely my best friend. So yeah, a house, electricity, air conditioning, some cats, video games, green almost every night, you know, happy. It was weird. It was a weird feeling. And I got to be a part of a family again, you know, and when I was a kid, like the first 15 years of my life, that was family-based. I had sister, brother, mom, dad, and at some point when I lost that, I don't know, it just felt normal again, you know, to be back in that dynamic. Even if I was the dad this time, there were still 3 kids, the wife, sort of. Guys, when I first started this thing, this journey, like I had no clue what I was doing, like no clue. I don't know what I'm doing. And I thought back in the beginning that, you know, talking about the difficult times in my life, you know, the times when I was really hurting, being homeless in Florida, you know, losing Amanda, then Mandy, losing my dad's cousin Kathy, losing everything in Columbus. I thought to relive these, to talk about them, like that was going to be super difficult, you know. But what I found 7 months later is that it's not really the difficult things, the hard times that were the hardest for me to talk about. It's the good times, you know, the times when I was happy, because looking back as I'm able to do, wow, was I happy. Like just plain happy, you know, and it hurts because I would go back. I would go back if I could. Yeah, what's up with that? This thing is really cool too. Like if you get it at the right angle, it looks like the little people are in the little, what do you call it, stable? Yeah. My mind does this weird thing, and I'm pretty sure it is the criticism from being a child, you know, the criticism of my parents, right? So let's see if I can break this down real quick. How to break this down? Let's get real into it, okay? So when my mind thinks about something horrific from my past, the other part of my mind goes, wow, that bad crap that happened to us, and it was horrible, and how we suffered, and how unhappy, and how miserable. We were next to unaliving ourselves, you know, this is as bad as it gets. Poor me, you know, that bad thing happened, poor me. Frowny face, tears, cry emoji. And the other side of this coin is that when I think about something that was really happy, really pleasant in my life, I look at that with my other brain and I say, wow, look at how happy we are. Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that awesome how we got to do that? We'll never get to do that again. Poor me. Poor me. We got to have a family. We got to watch kids grow up, you know. We got to be a somebody. We got to be an important part in somebody's lives. Not just one life, lots of lives, you know. And we don't get to go back now. And aren't you sad about that, Bishop? Poor me. You don't get to go back. Now you just gotta, well, I don't know, whatever this is, right? The present. So whether I look at a bad time, it's saddening. Poor me. If I look at a good time, it's also saddening. Poor me. Poor Bishop. All the time. Like, like what the hell? What's up with that? Why can't I look back at the bad stuff with a really positive view? You know, yeah, that happened to me, but I learned a lot. I grew a lot. I'm glad it's done. Or, yeah, these wonderful things happened to me, this awesome time, and I can always have that memory, and I can always talk about it and recall it and look at the videos and the pictures. But it just doesn't feel that way, you know? I get stuck with this cup half empty. My cup is always half empty. It doesn't matter if it's water, vodka, fruit juice, or Mountain Dew. Don't do the Mountain Dew. So I wonder, at what age will I finally stop looking at things in the worst possible way? At what age, Bishop? I've been through so much. You guys, all my tales, these are true. These are the deepest secrets from my life. And it feels very much like one of the deepest secrets is that I always look at things negative, you know? But yeah, that time in my life when my son was young and his voice was so fresh and full of life and happiness, to me, that was my happy time, you know, my happy place. Yeah. Do you have a happy place? Where do you go? What's the best time in your life? You guys, leave a comment. Send me an email. I don't do this for money. I don't do this for likes or clicks or subscriptions. You don't have to click the subscribe button, but I am hungry to know your story. What's my phrase? Share your story. Tell me all of it, because it helps me understand that we've all had a journey. We've all had ups and downs, and it's only the way that we look at the cup and think, it's still half full, huh? My cup is still half full, you guys. I'm gonna make it half full if I have to grab that cup and throttle the crap out of it. I'm gonna do it, okay? It's half full. And it's springtime. So it's kind of cool that I don't have to shiver. I'm not freezing anymore. My hands aren't purple. And look at this. Is this pretty cool? This is a pretty cool spot, huh? I love you all. I'll see you next time.
you need your bucket? Are you gonna puke? Let's see what this is, huh? It's a piece of salad and cucumbers. That's what's making Gabe cry, huh? This little piece of salad is stronger than Gabe. I thought he was big and strong. He punches his spot buddy, he smashes other stuff, he fights with Daddy good, he always beats me. But this little piece of lettuce makes him cry bad. Why does it make you cry? Read your story, okay?